and welcome for the weekly earnings review. And we're going to talk about the earnings that we got this week. Like last couple of weeks, I've been doing the videos on the earnings, what we got coming up in this week, and where do we go on the upside, downside on those numbers. So starting tomorrow, we got nothing tomorrow morning, nothing too crazy to move the market. There's nothing this week that actually is going to move the market as much. The only thing that I see is Nvidia that can move the techs. But besides that, I don't really see anything that is that crazy. Maybe some couple bio plays here that can move the IBB, but nothing too heavy. Let's put it that way. We got a couple bios. We got a few Chinese stocks. A few techs, So tomorrow after hours we got Hertz, and we got ANDV, Endeavor. They had a buyout, but this not completely done yet. So I'm not sure if that probably would go through tomorrow. So could be a play. ANDV right now is around 141. The buyout price was 152. So there is still a room of that upside if you really want to take a chance on that earnings. Then we got Tuesday morning, we got JD.com. It's a Chinese company, similar to Alibaba, but very undervalued in my opinion. Should be trading pretty nicely up in the 60s, 70s from the numbers that they have given, but always gets beat down on earnings. So something to keep an eye on. We'll go to the charts and we'll see the upside downside. We got VRX, Valiant, and we got ICPT, Intercept Pharmaceuticals. Now these two are pretty big bio stocks, especially VRX and ICPT. Last week we saw what happened with Gilead. Their numbers weren't very good, and they are in the market with the drugs, and they have a lot of cash, but not using that cash very well, kind of annoying the investors. ICPT is just similar. They are in the market with the drug. So and I think they have some studies going on, but their drug in the market is what's going to be the key numbers. We got Walt Disney on Tuesday after hours. This is something that we got to keep an eye on. The thing with this is Black Panther and Avengers. Two of the top grossing movies so far this year. And we haven't really seen that much of a move from Disney yet. The stock is still, in the range. Haven't really moved with very nice news. So eyes on Disney. Same with EA. After what happened with ATVI, I think EA will also be something that actually beats the earnings. ITSI, this is making a new all-time highs almost every single day. And then we got Marriott. Marriott will move, MGM, Wynn, all those Las Vegas hotels stocks. So we can keep an eye on that. The chart looks very good to me. So we'll go through that again. And then we got Weibo, Weibo, how we're gonna say it. And then we got SINA, Sina. Both are Chinese companies. I think we'll talk about those. So far, we have seen Alibaba and Baidu, two of the big Chinese companies, beat the earnings. So it'll be really interesting to see how these JD, Weibo, and Sina do. We'll talk about those. We got Roku, a new addition to the tech this year. Have been really doing nothing much lately, but they have been trying to compete some way with Netflix. So something to keep an eye on. We'll look into their news while we are going through their charts. And then Thursday morning, we really got nothing that big. And then we got Nvidia Thursday after hours. This is a key here. So far, we have seen semis do really well, but struggling to kind of hold the gains. Starting with MU, LRCX, Seagate, WDC, AMD. Even though numbers were good, haven't really got that movement. Intel, numbers were really good. Haven't really got that movement. Though Intel has some very weak guidance. NVIDIA does a lot more than all these companies do. NVIDIA does autonomous driving, which they actually end up canceling a few weeks back. So that could be a negative on their earnings. But they overall still, but that autonomous driving is not a big chunk of their revenues. So, like I said, like it will be very interesting to see what the numbers are like and how they guide in future. Yelp, Symantec, and then Dropbox is the first ER after the IPO. The chart is really nothing much to really look at because it's only been, I think, a month or so since the IPO, so nothing really to look at. But we'll still go over it and we'll talk about it. So just jump into the charts here. As always, we'll start with the our usual SPY, S&P 500, QQQ, and IWM, and then we'll jump into the ER stuff. So as you can see here, we've been testing this 200 SMA for this entire year, and then we're bouncing. My question is, how long do we keep testing and bouncing? How long? Do we break out? Because every time we come to the top of the channel, we fall back. Are we going to get a pullback from 270 again? Most possibly. Or if we break out of this downtrend channel, then we can make that next leg up to the upside. But until I see the breakout over this downtrend line, I don't really am convinced with the Friday movement. Another thing that really concerned me on Friday was this, look at this volume. Actually, literally not much volume on Friday. Nothing that really interested me on that movement. So that's my concern on the volume side. This is the daily chart. If you look at the weekly chart on the SPY, we're starting from the, let me just take this out. There's too many numbers, too many stuff going on here. So this is the 2016 channel. And we kind of, like lately, we've been kind of breaking down and bouncing back up. But both the Fridays, both the weeks, we saw some buyers coming in. We came down to this channel, we got buyers coming in. Again on Friday, we came down here, we got buyers coming in. How long do we have the buyers coming in? I think in the next week or so, we're going to know the definite direction in the market. Or we need to know the definite direction in the market. This chop cannot continue to go on. The only thing that I personally see here is that gap from the August, November, September spike, 9/11 spike. That's the only thing I see that has to get filled. That's a big drop back, but I won't be surprised if we see that. I won't be surprised personally. I think it will be a very healthy pullback. You can call it a crash, you can call it a recession, whatever you feel like calling it. You can call it a, whatever you want to call it. But I feel like this is, if we close this gap and make that, we can really easily, we'll have a strong uptrend if this gap is filled. I know we are holding the 200 SMA, and I think that's a very strong and a good sign. And if we hold it and break over this channel, over this downtrend, it's a very bullish sign. So I would still be very careful personally on a day-to-day basis. Nothing long-term, no long-term positions yet in this kind of market for me. Same thing with QQQ. Haven't really tested the 200 SMA, but holding the 2016 uptrend, and we broke out here a couple of times, but now we're back in the channel. We tried to make that, we kind of had that breakout over here on Friday. So that's the good thing. Let's just hope that we continue here. Because if we fall back in, it doesn't really do much. It has to really break out here and continue and break this 167-ish resistance here, which is actually 165 actually. So we really need to break this and we can see that uptrend from here. And IWM, there's too much going on here. Let me just take this fibs out here. And the same thing for IWM, 2016 trend line channel here. We've been kind of downtrending here. Hope to see the breakout over here over 157, and maybe we can go and test that 160. I'm still, like I said, personally, I am very cautious in this market. I'm trading day to day. I'm not holding anything over the weekend, especially. Maybe during the weekdays I might swing something overnight. That's purely on my charts, but and they work out for the most part. But I'm not into long terms. I'm not buying calls, back for July, August. No, I'm trading day to day until I see a definite trend in the market. So IWM needs to break this channel. All of these three things have to break the uptrend, the downtrend channel, trend line to make a new uptrend. All right, so let's just jump into Hertz. Hertz have been doing good overall as a company. This is a 3-year chart. I know they've been downtrending. If you look at the chart, it's not pretty. So I understand that. And we have, obviously, there's a solid base here, $8. But that was a low of all times, I think. But looking at last year or so, they have found a solid base at $17. A nice solid base at 17. They have been doing good. They beat earnings in August. They did not in November. They didn't in February. So if they do well on the numbers, right now we are at the $22 range over here, and if they do well on Monday evening, this can break 22.61 and test the 25 range. And if they don't, $17 have to be holding. If not, then there is much. It can really test that $12 mark. That's what the next support line would be. So it really needs to break this $20 either from here, go up to 25 on good numbers, and because every time it does come to 25 here over here, it just comes back down. There's nothing much there. Because if it breaks that 25, it really can move up to this, over here around 29 level, and then possibly fill this gap to 32. So good numbers really have to really beat out of the park for it to make that massive kind of move. And they have been trying. Nice consolidation here. I hope they do well, and I hope we see the nice movement to the upside here. All right, I'm moving into JD.com. Now, I like JD. I play this more often than not, but lately I have not been, and there's a reason. It's a 3-year chart, and you see this nice rounded bottom, right? Nice double bottom at the 19 range, around this $19, $20 range. A nice U shape. And now we're just stuck in this sideways consolidation since last year. From almost a year now. If you look at from 5.8, which is the last earnings, which was almost a year, we are still the same point. If you ask me, this looks like, oh my God, look at this. This is like deja vu all over again, with the same price point up around, and we had a spike. We had the same kind. We actually had the spike on Friday from this level. Do we move up? Is the question. So let's look at the chart. Let's kind of zoom in. So we obviously found the double bottom at this 35 range, double, triple, quadruple bottoms. I don't know, and now it's nice sideways movement before the earnings. We have closed the gap. This needs to beat the earnings. If they don't really beat the earnings, they can actually have a nice drop to this $30 range. There is a support at 33 and then 30, but I personally feel they will beat. They need to beat this one. People compare Alibaba with JD with Alibaba. This needs to prove itself in the market this time. It really needs to show that it can stand against the big guns. Nice chart pattern. I just want to see this, kind of just similar to Alibaba pattern, just kind of the same chart pattern to Baba. 192 on Baba was strong. This here is around 47-ish or 46-ish. 206 was the high on Baba. 50, 60 high on here. I strongly believe that they actually beat the earnings this time and make that uptrend to 42, 43. I know I tried playing this 2 times earnings back in August and back in November. I got bitten twice on this one. I didn't play this earnings over here, but I got bit twice on this one. I might gamble it again this time just because I feel like this might actually make a move this time. VRX, Valiant Pharmaceuticals. Now, it's a bio stock. There's nothing to do with the charts on this one. The one thing we can look at is the upside and the downside where it can actually move. The downside on this one is not all the way to the $14. If their numbers aren't very impressive, and Valiant has kind of been the choppy. If you look at the last 3 years, do not look at the last 3 year chart. It's ugly. But if you look at last year, actually, you can see like it's been in this 17, 18 being a strong resistance right here. Really can get over that $18 mark. Every time it comes up, yeah, it did make the move in that December time, but every time it comes to the $18 mark here, it struggles. It struggles. It really needs to break this, and it can make that move to the upside. 18 breaks, 19 breaks, and then it can go to the 20s. So on the downside, it really can actually come down to the 16 level and then 14. If that breaks, then there's a gap to fill all the way to the $12. But if they do well, we can look to the upside to $20 and $22. This is the ICPT, Intercept Pharmaceuticals. I don't know much about the company, but all I'm looking here is a consolidation. That's it. That's all I'm looking at here. Even on and they have been to 2 earnings in between that, and nothing and no much movement. Even on the earnings day, a little bit of uptick and then down. And even on this one, a little bit of uptrend and then down. So really have not been doing anything. They even closed the gap here, and now it's just in this kind of a channel pattern. What I do see is like I'm seeing like a bottom here. So it made the double bottom in this range over here. So I see that, and then I'm seeing a downtrend kind of coming, and then I see like an uptrend coming. So it's a different kind of chart here. Up and then kind of sliding down here, make that uptrend double bottom, and now again trying to make that uptrend. And if they really do well, this can actually spike really nicely to this 99 and close the gap to 100 in the near term. Not saying it will happen on the earnings day. It possibly could, because this is a stock I remember 5-6 years back went from $15 to $500 in one day. If I can actually look at I actually want to show you that really quick because I think it's a really fascinating. Let's look at 5, maybe 10 years, maybe. Just because I want to show you this, guys, right here. So sorry, $73 to $500 in one day. This was 2014 of January. I remember I had just started trading, like learning new trading stuff, and so yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And guess what? What's surprising here? That $50 line that right now I just showed you is the exact same line from back in the days, back in 2014. So it's not a coincidence that actually is holding. So it actually filled that massive gap that it had from 2014. So most likely this is going to hold unless they really have bad numbers. So look at that coincidence. Actually, it's actually holding that 2014 support, 13, 14, yeah, and actually filled that massive gap. Now it's consolidating like it did over here, and I think this can be a nice earning play if you really are into, trying to just YOLO a little bit just on the chart pattern. So eyes on ICPT. Disney. Now Disney as well have a strong support around like 97-ish, 98, 96, 97 area. So that's a very strong support on Disney. It has made a multiple bottoms in that 96, 97 area. Every time it comes down to this level, it makes the uptrend. I'm kind of feeling the same kind of pattern here. Nice reversal on Friday, hoping that it continues into the earnings on Monday and into the earnings. And if the numbers are really good, like they were over here in November, it can make that highs. If the numbers aren't very good, 96. I would surprise why wouldn't the numbers be good just because of their numbers on the movies. But if the numbers aren't very good, which is over 96, and it can come down and test that 90 level. Maybe some support at 94, but 90 would be a strong support on Disney. EA Sports. Now, this really shook me off. I actually was holding some calls for the earnings, and that Thursday event on ATVI, EA, and TTWO really shook me off. Fortunately, I actually had bought at 115. I had bought some $128 calls for May 18th, and actually ended up selling around 120-ish for some nice gains. But but I could have actually held on to it to this rough day, and I got a little scared because I had gains on it and didn't want to lose it, and it came down to 115, and then it made that nice green day on Friday. So yeah, so I mean, I feel like this every time on the earnings it actually makes a nice spike. I expect this to continue to do that after ATVI's earnings. So I would keep an eye on this as we go into earnings on Tuesday after hours. Etsy, I think it's Etsy. Is it Etsy? Yes, Etsy after. So nothing much to see here. It's been nice uptrending channel here. It's testing the bottom of the channel here on going into the earnings. I expect it to run into the earnings and probably test and probably make new all-time highs. It does tend to move onto the earnings. If you look at it, it made a nice gap up onto the earnings. Now it kind of haven't filled the gap yet. If the numbers aren't very good, there's a possibility of this support line to be holding the earnings support, the previous earnings support, and then possibly fill the gap and earnings are good. Then you can look at that the top of the channel around like 35, 36. Now Marriott, this is a big one. I mean, this can move the all the hotels, MGM, Wynn. So eyes on this one. Amazing chart. See this nice. This kind of reminds me of MasterCard in a way, but lately it's been kind of struggling. But MasterCard has been super killer. I will get confused between MA and MAR, so sometimes it's almost similar to me. But a nice, from the 118s to 150s in 2 months. And obviously we had a pullback, and since then it's been kind of like downtrending in a way, making these lower highs, lower highs. Yeah, I was confused. And a nice base at the 128, 130 level, which is a very strong thing. Going into earnings, we got some, 130, 128. Nice base here. Going into earnings, I personally would like this to make a move. I know that Wynn didn't do really well after earnings, so did MGM. They didn't really do well after earnings. I think their numbers weren't as great as expected, I think. So if the numbers aren't very good, 128 level has to hold, and if not, then we got some support at the 124 level. And if the numbers are pretty good, we can look into this 140s to 141s, 140 and then 145-ish level on the upside. Weibo, WB, I believe this is like a dating website or something in China, if I'm not mistaken. They have been doing really well overall. The earnings have been pretty nice. If you look at it here, 51 estimated and actual was 50. Kind of low there, but 61 was 60 estimated, 64 actual, and then you can see the massive spike here. Also been downtrending lately a little bit. But on the good numbers, we can see this level of I believe, because this spikes. I mean, this doesn't just move like $2-3. These stocks move like $10. Weibos, SINA, they move pretty big. So on the downside, we got 107. If that's broken on the numbers, we can come down to this 97. Not much here. Obviously, don't forget you have $100 psychological support. And then on the upside, like I said, 120 to 135 can happen. So you can see like how it moved from here, Feb 9, 107, all the way to 142 after the earnings happened. So it was a pretty big move, almost like $30 move. So there's no doubt that it cannot happen. But what I'm seeing here is a nice head and shoulder forming, so like a bear flag, up, down, bear flag, up, down. So I'm seeing that here. So I'm seeing this kind of uptrend, and then going into earnings, I feel like this could have a bear leg down. So this is kind of a bear flagging here on a daily, but all on the numbers though. And same thing on SINA. We have seen this has actually had topped out here a couple times. We got double top here. Let's see, double, triple top, 1, 2, 3. If you can't break the third time, it usually comes down pretty nicely, and it did. You got a strong support at around $89. Again, it's kind of making that head and shoulder, so like up and then down, gap down, up and a gap down, and then kind of a shoulder forming here. So if we break the 90 bucks on the earnings, we got a nice support here at this $83 mark. On the upside, if they do really well, we got some resistance at 105 and then 112. So those numbers have to be in mind if you're going to play the earnings. Looking at Roku, this is what we have so far on Roku. So they went public last year in September, and since then, they haven't really done much since then. Now made the all-time highs. Now just kind of a downtrending, nothing much going on. No news events here. Let's see. It has actually filled this gap from from November that it had some news, and it filled the gap here one time and had a nice spike. Let's see what it did on the 2.9. Nothing much. So yeah, just sideways. I don't know what's gonna happen here. I'm just covering here because I think people do watch Roku a lot lately. So I'm just talking about it. I'm not gonna play the earnings on this one. I won't even gamble my money at all on this one. Yeah, on the downside, you can look at this. If it really don't do really well, you got support at this $23 mark here, or 23.79, and then it can fill the gap here at 20 bucks. On the upside, there's the strong upside, because what happens is that they beat one earnings and everybody just runs to that stock, and they're like, oh, okay, they know what they're doing, and then it just kind of gets that momo, and it just keeps going. Like you saw, like 1 to 3 days, like went from $19 to almost 50 bucks, $48. So one beat earnings, and it's gonna get that momo, or if not, the shorts are gonna be all over it. So I would keep an eye on this. I wouldn't be personally playing this one. All right, Nvidia, my favorite so far. I've been playing this every single day for last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks now. Thankfully, have been really lucky with the play, I should say. Been buying some calls, and been mostly just overnight swings on here. It moves like crazy, so you don't really need that. In last 2 days, it went from 225, 223 to 240, $15 move in 2 days. And I do regret selling my calls on Thursday, especially with the earnings coming up. But hey, it was a green trade overall. On Nvidia now, we know one thing for sure is that, one thing for sure I feel is, we got some support at 210 and then 200. 200 has been a strong support so far. We have been kind of like channeling here, and I like to see this continue. And so this can last earnings, this was 2.9 or sorry 2.5, went from 203 the earnings were over here, right here. Yeah, sorry. It was 2.8, yeah, 2.9. We saw this massive pullback, and guess what? After a couple of days, it made that run after the earnings. And Nvidia will do that. It will fall on the day of earnings, and then it will just run the next day. Sometimes it might just run the same day. massive mover, have been consolidating strongly this year after the move in the beginning of the year in January. It has been in this like I would say 225ish and 245ish range for the most part. I think once it breaks that 254, which is the all-time highs, don't look back. This is going to go to 268 and then those 200 between 268 and 280s. This is a fast mover. It can move 10 to 12, $14, $15 a days. So I would definitely keep an eye on Nvidia going into earnings. I would not be playing the earnings, but I would definitely play after the earnings. Yelp. I think that's probably what we have. Yelp. Okay, so we got a few more. I like Yelp. I played this last time the run into the earnings. I bought it at here 42 and I sold at 46. Yeah, I remember this one, and I sold it right before the earnings, and it had a nice downfall after the earnings. Holding the support, that's the gap up from the earnings from August. Holding that support for quite now. Nice ascending triangle here, needs to break the 45, struggling at the 45 level. I know it has broken in the past, but not every time it does, it just comes back down a day or two after. What I would like to see is that test that 45, go on the sideways on 45, and then make that uptrend. This could be it. It's been nice consolidation for last 8, 9, 10, 11 months. Nice consolidation in this 37 and 47 area. It's time to break out. Let's find some direction. Let's look at some 3-year chart. This is the most I have seen as a consolidation, because if you look at 2016, let's kind of go back. Uptrend, beat the earnings, uptrend, beat the earnings, uptrend, came back down, beat the earnings, and then struggled a little bit, and then beat the earnings. Now, if you extend this a little bit, and just to look back here a tiny bit, what we see here is that the 45 is also kind of a resistance over here back in 2015. Those levels are being watched. That level, because even if it made the $50, it came back down. 48 came back down. 45 could not break, and it just kept going down. Since then, it has not been able to break $45 mark. So break of 45, 46, 47 is going to be huge on Yelp. It can really make that move. So if this earnings are really good, it can actually do that, and it might see a massive spike. So I would keep an eye on Yelp. And Symantec. This is something that I'm watching. I like it. I played it one time. I want to see the 3-year chart on this one real quick. Okay. So we know that we have a resistance at the 27, which was a resistance. Now it's support. What I do see here is that besides the resistance, we have made a double bottom at 25. So we are kind of right now in this pattern of a U shape, a double bottom, a bull flag forming here, and I expect this to spike into earnings. And if we can break this level, which is right here, it can go and fill this gap in the near future. That's what I personally feel could happen if the numbers are really good. Because what happens is that when a stock is this stuck in a range, and when it actually breaks out, it breaks out hard. It moves. It doesn't just move a buck or two. When it breaks the pattern to the upside or to the downside, it moves in the direction pretty fast, pretty strong. It's not gonna just move a little bit. So, keep an eye on this. I would definitely keep an eye on Symantec going into earnings. And then Dropbox. So with Dropbox, there's nothing much going on. They went IPO'd in March. So I'm just keeping an eye on the futures. They just opened up. Okay, nothing crazy on the futures as of yet. But anyways, Dropbox. So we got support at 28. That's where they opened up. That level has to get hold. It has to hold. What I'm seeing is that it's kind of making this U shape and then a bull flag here, and possible would like to see this into this kind of movement. That's a possibility. So kind of a cloud company, competing with big cloud companies like CRM. I don't know their fundamental full completely yet of Dropbox. I know they're a cloud company, but I don't know what is their how they're related as strong to CRM or Workday or VMware or all those companies. So, but yeah, so this is what Dropbox I would keep an eye. They have options now, and I'm looking at the option change. They're not expensive. If you really want to play this option here, if I personally was playing the option, I would buy $30 calls for May 18. They were like $150 or something. Buy a couple, $200 YOLO maybe on it. I think it could be a nice pay on it. If they do really well. So I would keep an eye on it. Really haven't had much of a volume here since the first day, so that's the only concern that I have. But besides that, I think it's a really nice chart formation here, holding the sub 28, which was the IPO price, pretty nicely. So I would keep an eye on it going into earnings. So that's all I have right now on this play. So I would definitely, the play that I would personally be buying and playing earnings is JD and Symantec and Dropbox. I think I'm gonna probably play those earnings. I might take my shot at it, take my luck, and I think it might be those two might be a good chart place so far. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely keep an eye on those three and probably put some money on those on it. So that's all I have for this particular video. So yeah, so like I said, we need to keep an eye on the SPY on this level. We need to break down to the upside of this trend line. Same on the QQQ. We kind of broke out on Friday. Hopefully we continue. Futures are popping right now. The Dow is up 35. At the moment I'm watching at 602. S&P is up 3.25 and the Nasdaq is up 12 points. And the Russell is up 2.40. So futures are looking good so far. Hope they continue into the morning as of 6:03 p.m. So yeah, I'm sure they'll probably go red in some time as usual. And IWM, so same things. So keep an eye on these downtrend lines. I think they're very critical to keep an eye on. Okay, so that's all I have for this video. Thank you for watching and be safe and good luck trading this week.